Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on LaSalle TV. I'm your host Josh Abrams, and baseball is right around the corner. We're going to talk about the Phillies and their spring training starting up, and then also we're going to talk about the Flyers and some moves that they've made towards the playoff push. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
And welcome back from the intro. On desk with me today, I have Kevin Cook, the Sports Talk Norm, and making his Sports Talk debut this week is Sportsline and LaSalle TV's very own Tegan Lamone. Guys, thank you for joining me. We have a lot to talk about today, but first, let's get into Phillies talk. We're right around the corner. Spring training's about to get started. We've had some pretty dismal years the last couple of years. But we've made some pretty key transactions this season. Now let's talk about it. We picked up Carlos Santana, and we're starting to make some moves in the free agency market. So let's talk about that, guys.
Yeah, well, as you can see there, we brought back Pat Neshek. He had a great season last year, and same thing for Tommy Hunter, two relief pitchers that can really help us for next season. And Carlos Santana is a veteran that I think that is going to be a key addition for this team. He went through a similar process with Cleveland when they started their rebuild there, and I really like that move there. We did lose some players like Freddie Galvis, who was a leader for the team, but overall I thought that Clentak had a good offseason.
I think it's a similar scenario to last year where they really tried to shore up the bullpen a little bit, getting Tommy Hunter, who had a 2.61 ERA last year, and bringing Neshek back, who was really good for us and then also really good for Colorado last year. And Santana's a guy that this team could probably use a lot. The lineup's pretty strong, a lot of depth in the lineup, but there was really no established bat there. Odubel Herrera is probably your most established guy that was here already. So adding Santana, who's shown that he can play baseball in this league for quite a while, it's a big pickup.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm a little nervous about with the Santana ad, and I know Tegan, you and I have talked about this, is the fact that takes away the option of playing Hoskins at first, because Carlos Santana, I did see that he is taking some reps as the catcher, but I'm assuming that Alfaro is going to have the job at the catching spot, and it's going to be Carlos Santana playing first base for us on most game days.
Yeah.
And obviously, go ahead.
That's an interesting thing, because Hoskins, he didn't play much of the outfield last year. He played a little bit of it, but playing a different position can always affect your offensive stats, especially if you're playing first base normally. It's not a demanding position most times.
And the other thing that this brings up too is something that we were talking about just a second ago, is their outfield now, because you're going to have to play either one of Altair or Williams. Both of them showed last year that they can be an everyday outfielder for the team. It'll be interesting to see how they're going to balance and platoon those players along with Odubel Herrera in the outfield and at first base.
Yeah, so obviously this team is starting to look more and more like a team that can have the potential to get back to World Series, get back to playing baseball in October. Dougie P said playing football in the month of February is the new normal. We're going to hope for the same thing with the Phillies in October. But let's move on to the big talk, the big rumors, talks with Cubs pitcher Jake Arrieta. He, in my eyes, is probably the guy that you would want to head our young pitching staff. We've had trouble establishing a strong pitching staff probably since the days where we had Hamels and Holiday and that whole crew. So let's talk about him, guys. What do you guys feel about Jake Arrieta?
Yeah, I feel like that's a similar thing to Santana almost, too. If you get a guy that's established and has proven his last 5 years with the Cubs, his ERA has been 2.73 in those 5 years. He's been really, really consistent and really good for 5 years. We don't have a guy on the staff that's been really good for any stretch of time other than Aaron Nola, who was awesome last year.
Yeah.
I think if you get an Arrieta and this team can make a playoff contender out of themselves, I think Nola could legitimately be a Cy Young candidate. I don't
Yeah.
know that he's a winner, but I think that you could see him put up stats that are Cy Young-esque, put him in the conversation. But I think you need an Arrieta at the top of the rotation to take a little bit of pressure off of Nola, because right now he's your only guy that you know is going to go out there once every 5 days and be a consistent contributor.
I think getting Arrieta, like you said, is going to shore up the pitching rotation for the Phils. With that being said, though, there are concerns. As you saw, he's going to be 32 by the time opening day starts. And you can see some of the pitchers that we have there. Not many of them are established pitchers in the majors. Some of the other options that could happen are like Ben Lively and Al Leiter going for that last spot. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But like I was saying, getting an Arrieta at the beginning of that rotation would really help and shore up some of the concerns that we have going into the season.
Now, something that I've been trying to figure out is I haven't really looked too much into it, but I've heard that Arrieta is really looking for a big deal. But like you said, Kevin, he's going to be turning 32 by the time we start the season. But the Phillies are going to have to try to negotiate with Arrieta if we want to pick him up. How do you guys feel about that whole contract situation and the gap there between the two parties?
Well, I think that it goes to show something that he's still unsigned. I mean, not many pitchers go into spring training as a free agent that are, as good as Arrieta is. So I think that his agent, Scott Boras, who most Philly fans despise, it might be asking for a little bit too much, and I think that they are going to negotiate here, and I think that we are going to end up getting him in the long haul. And like I said, I mean, I would really be a fan of that because he's been very consistent over the past couple of years. He will be a good leader for us. And on top of it, I mean, he won the Cy Young in 2015, was it? And that year he posted 177 ERA.
Yeah.
It was great.
And then he won a World Series next year, which obviously means that he can pitch on the biggest stage of baseball.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that a good point here is that the Phillies are really looking for short-term contracts. A guy that's 32 years old likely isn't going to want a 6-year deal. That's a good thing for the Phillies. His age, as it limits him as a player, is a good thing for the Phillies and the roster moves that they want to make. They want to add a starter, but they don't want to add an Alex Cobb or Jake Odorizzi, who is going to want 4 or 5 years on the deal. They want someone that can come in, be a little stopgap so that they can figure out what they have in the minors.
And on top of that, signing a guy like Arrieta again, I mean, this doesn't have to be for the long haul for the Phillies. Instead, if you sign him for a short deal, then you can go out at the trade deadline. You can get something in return for him, and he could come back up for another contract in maybe at the end of this season or the next season. So where he has the options of what he wants to be able to do, and we're also going to be getting either a good performer out of him or a young prospect back for him. So I think that it could be a win-win for both if we do keep this short.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with all of that. Before we move on to Tegan's spiel, before we end Phillies talk, I just wanted to bring up something about the bullpen. That's something that we don't really talk about too much, but I wanted to address that because just like we've been boggling around players in our starting lineup for offense and positioning, we've been doing the same thing with our bullpen. And I really think that getting Pat Neshek back, for as old as he is, I know he's up there in the upper 30s, but that is a pretty big addition in my eyes, just simply because that's an almost automatic 1-2-3 inning late in the game, and that's pretty important at least for closing out games.
Yeah, I mean, he pitched in 2 very big batter ballparks last year and ended the year with a 1.59 ERA, and his ERA at Citizens Bank Park was 1.12. The guy pitched really well all year and pitched especially well when with the Phillies. So I don't know how you can be disappointed with bringing him back. It's a move that worked for us last year, and we got something back for him last year. Maybe this year we get him and stick with him and maybe make a little run with him, contend with him.
And here's another thing. We talked about bringing back Neshek, and another guy, Tommy Hunter. And a third guy that I'm going to talk about in that bullpen that I really like, Adam Morgan. He's going to be the left-handed bullpen pitcher for us. And if you look at the second half of the season for all those guys, they all finished within the top 20 relievers in all of baseball. It's pretty interesting to see because, I mean, the past couple of years we've struggled back there. And Gabe Kapler has come out and said that we're not going to have, designated guys. But I'm telling you right now that I think that these three guys are going to combine and have a very good season for us, and we're going to have one of the most formidable bullpens in baseball.
Yeah, another thing about Morgan, he reminds me a little bit of Zach Britton. Zach Britton as a starter for the Orioles was not good at all.
Moved into the
bullpen, gained a few miles an hour on the fastball, which Morgan did. He gained like 3 miles an hour on his fastball last year. Moved into the bullpen, he's an like you said, he's an all-star. He's a really good, really solid contributor to that team every day.
Yeah, definitely exciting to see that we have something established right now and we have the potential. But before we go to our commercial break here, we're going to take it over to Tegan here, who has a little tidbit of his own.
A little future action here. Last season, Jorge Alfaro, Rhys Hoskins, and Nick Williams managed to combine for 162 games played. That's a full season. They hit 35 home runs. Drove in 117 runs, scored 94 runs, batted .285, and were on base .351. If one of those guys can put up numbers anywhere similar to that, that's a great bat in the middle of the lineup.
Right,
that's an absolute all-star. That's close to an MVP candidate if you can do that. That's a Aaron Judge type of season for a young guy. If they can put that together, it's a really, really solid performance for a guy in year 1 or 2.
Yeah, and hopefully that now that they got Santana, that'll give Hoskins a little bit more protection. Same thing for Alfaro. This lineup is starting to come together, and hopefully the better hitters that we put in there, it's only going to improve what we've already had, and hopefully we see that this season with players like Hoskins and moving forward with Williams and Alfaro.
Yeah, so, Tegan, I don't blame you for being excited for the offense. That is something to definitely look forward to. But we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to have another panelist join us for Flyers Talk.
Hi, Eddie Dunn here with LaSalle's favorite TV game show, Q&A. Do you know that LaSalle TV reaches over 300,000 homes in the Philadelphia area? Probably, right? Did you also know there's actually 13 zodiac constellations and not 12? The 13th is called Ophiuchus. But we got rid of that one because it sounds dumb, and also 13 is an unlucky number. So that's why we have 12. Where'd you learn that? LaSalle TV.
This is Kevin, and Kevin could use some kindness. Here's Ian. He could be that man. Ian chooses to be inconsiderate and not hold the door for Kevin, and in turn, Kevin suffers. Kindness may be a choice, but doing so is always the right one. So if Ian can make the right choice, you can too.
And welcome back from the commercial break. And joining us on desk right now is our very good friend Nick Kerr. Nick, thank you for joining us. And let's get into Flyers talk. The Flyers, the black and orange guys, are still playing very well. They continue to play very strongly. They're able to close out more games than we've been able to see in a while. How are you guys feeling right now? Last week we were feeling good. This week?
Honestly, I think they're playing great. They are still having that, they restarted a new winning streak, which I'm really excited about after their loss to New Jersey last week. And there's still hope that they can win the Metro because they are only behind Washington by 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, another thing about that win streak, they haven't had to kill a power play in that entire win streak. They have not killed one power play. Their last 3 games,
Wow.
They have not taken a single penalty. I think their only penalty came on, I think Weiss got a roughing penalty.
Yeah, I think I remember.
And there was a penalty. I can't forget if it was a Montreal game or what game it was, but the opposing team got a penalty at the same time. So have not had a power play, which bodes well for you when you're on a hot streak. It's a good thing to not have to fight off the power play.
How about the irony of the Broad Street Bullies not getting a single penalty?
Right. Yeah, and it ties like an NHL record. They've been keeping power play stats since '77, I think, and the second time ever that a team's gone 3 games without a penalty. Excuse me.
Yeah, that is pretty unbelievable. But unfortunately, well, actually, before we get to I'm not going to get to the bad news first. Let's talk about the good news right now. Nick, you kind of hinted at it earlier when we went to you. The Flyers are doing actually really well in the standings. I think at least for me, I'm used to them hovering around the wild card spot. And while they're not at the top of the Eastern Conference, because that's a lot harder to do. It's a lot easier said than done. But they're hanging really well. They're winning games, as we're saying, and they're playing very consistently. In terms of the standings, what are you guys thinking in terms of us potentially maybe moving up in the standings?
I think that they're playing great hockey, so obviously it's possible for that to happen. It's rough because, as you saw, some of those teams above us are also playing some really good hockey right now. Yeah. With that being said, since the beginning of December, the Flyers are 3rd in the NHL in points, 5th in power play percentage. So they're clicking on all cylinders right now. And in that same stretch, they've gotten points out of 26 of 35 games. Pretty incredible. And it's not like they're playing slouches. They went out to Vegas and they were able to play them, who's one of the teams that's ahead of them. Like these are things that good teams do, and I'm really starting to think that this team can make a playoff push.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, this month has been a really good month for them too. They're 7-1-2 this month. Like you said, though, there's other teams playing real good hockey too now. Pittsburgh's the team right ahead of them, and they're the only team in the NHL with a longer winning streak than they are. So I mean,
Boston's playing right now too. They got the best goal differential in the NHL.
Yeah, and Tampa's is a crazy high goal differential too. Both of those two teams having really good years, along with Vegas, like you said. But like you said, I think there's room for us to move up a couple spots. But I don't see us dropping out though. I don't see us cooling off to the point that we're dropping out of the playoffs.
I think they will make a very good push into the postseason because of how well they are playing right now, even though they have a good chunk of the season left. And with their 22 games left, they have 18 games still in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
And that is one of the hardest conferences in all of hockey, and especially with the division that they are in, because they have to deal with Washington, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. Playing in the Eastern Conference and then specifically playing in the Metropolitan Division is a very tall task. We have overcome some adversity this season, aside from minor injuries to certain players. We did lose our second goalie, Michael Neuwirth. Unfortunately, he went down with what as specific as the NHL will get, is lower body injury. He came in and filled in for Brian Elliott. The win and loss record isn't necessarily the best or the most eye-popping, but he came in and had some solid starts for us. But now we're down Neuwirth now. We're down Elliott, and then we go out and we get the Red Wings goalie Peter Mrazek. Talk about what you guys think the goaltending situation is at right now.
Yeah. Sorry. It was kind of interesting. I mean, I said last week that I didn't think that the guy behind Neuwirth could play, and sure enough, Lyon came out and proved me wrong. Great as per usual, make me look stupid. Yeah. But yeah, he played spectacular in the game where he came in, only giving up the 1 goal, and he some amazing saves. Same thing in the last game that they played. He played on his head, and they're a very good team playing in front of him. So hopefully it's much the same when it comes forward with Mrazek, who I do like. Yeah. But with that being said, as long as we keep playing well in front of them, backup goalie syndrome's kicking in for this team. I think they're blocking more shots. They're playing to win the game, and you know, I don't know if it is the backup goalie that has them playing harder, but whatever it is, they're playing great. So
Yeah, and like you said, when Neuwirth came in, he came in for Brian Elliott, who I think he got hurt on the first penalty shot in a game. Came in the middle of a penalty shot, or like in the middle of a shootout.
Right.
And they didn't let him warm up, didn't let him do anything. They won that shootout, and he played pretty consistently.
and that's
pretty
the first
well.
time that's the first time that a goalie was just thrown into a shootout.
Yeah, they didn't
and
let him
won
do
the
anything
game.
either.
Yeah.
They didn't let him
Yeah,
take
he's
any slap shots, anything from his own team, nothing. Throw him
Right
throw
into
him
the fire. Yeah.
Right into the fire.
Yeah.
Another thing with Mrazek, I think it was his rookie year. He was 23. He posted a really solid season for Detroit. He had 2.33 goals against and a 92.1 save percentage, which is pretty solid. That was as a 23-year-old. Detroit for a little while thought he was going to be their future, but he and the team tailed off last year. Like Kevin was saying before the show, maybe that's a team around him kind of thing. Detroit doesn't have the best quality on their roster right now.
Not anymore, yeah.
But maybe it's if he gets guys around him that can play hockey, maybe he steps up and
He'll go back to his old form. That's what I'm hoping.
Right, and like we were saying earlier, if you get in the playoffs, as they say in hockey, all you got to do is get in. You need a hot goalie.
Anything can happen.
A hot goalie,
Think
a hot
about the
goalie
Flyers
gets you
the year
through
they went to
anything.
the Cup.
Yeah.
That's like the one NHL playoffs is the one set of playoffs you want to watch because of the whole 8 seed going to
Anything
the
can
Stanley
happen.
Cup. It happens, it happens more frequently in hockey than any other sport. Nick, talk to me about Claude Giroux. This guy has put his heart and soul into the Flyers program, the organization. He scored his 200th goal the other day against the Rangers. What are your thoughts on Claude Giroux?
I like him very much. He's been with the franchise for a very long time, and he's pretty much the face of the franchise. He really knows how to like come around when the team needs to step up.
Yeah, and to that, he's really playing well this year. He's tied second in the NHL in points with Evgeny Malkin. Yeah. He's third in the league in assists, and he's on pace to score 95 points this season, which would be the most in his career. But I mean, you know, I don't want to give credit to on pace for it because, as Nick said, there's still 22 games left. Anything can happen. But at the point that he sits right now, he's already got the most points that he's had since like the 14-15 season. So it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do, and to have a bounce back year like this is good.
Yeah, he's getting a little older and still producing. Like you said, he's third in the NHL in assists, and I think Voracek's first in the NHL still in assists. That bodes well for your team when you have guys playing team hockey that well and sharing the puck. Go ahead.
Sorry, and Giroux's been catching a lot of flack lately because he has been tailoring off in the past couple of seasons, but he's shown that he can still play and that he's still the leader on this team. So.
Yeah, you hear from Flyers fans an awful lot about how Giroux isn't a true superstar, never was a true superstar even. I think he's proven to himself and to the team and to the fans a little bit that he's
still got it.
Maybe he's not a superstar, but he's a guy that contributes to the team that can win games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. You know, Claude Giroux, always been a big fan of Claude Giroux. I think a lot of people are. But while we do have the veterans like Giroux, Voracek, Simmons, those guys that have been leading us on offense, we gotta give credit to the young talent we have on our team, and specifically Nolan Patrick, guys. He has had a stellar month of February so far. He's been very productive on the ice, right? I mean, he's just playing the lights out right now.
Yeah, he's playing unreal right now, and you can really start. He started to pick it up, like you said, at the beginning of the month, and he's finally showing us that he was worth the second overall pick. But he's not the only one that has stepped up in this time. I mean, Jordan Wheel's been having a good month, Provorov's been having a solid season for us. Ghost has returned back to form. So it's showing us again that our young players are starting to pick it up for us, and you know, this could end up working out for us.
Yeah,
and that's exactly right. And I knew once we drafted him, this kid was going to be a stud. Like with this season that he's having right now, I knew that he was worth it, and he's basically one of the best picks we've had so far, I think.
Yeah,
and of the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely someone we want to think about keeping for the future. But we're going to move on now to one of the bigger segments on Sports Talk Philadelphia, and that is Fast Five. Kevin, we're going to come to you with the first Fast Five question. Who do you think is going to finish as the Flyers' leader in goals this season?
Sean Couturier. He's currently leading them in goals right now at 29. That puts him 7th in the NHL, which is another reason why they're playing so well is because Couturier has bounced back so well. Great job by Hextall switching up the lines to make it work, but I think he's going to finish with the most for us.
Yep. Tegan, we're going to come to you now. There are talks and rumors about baseball switching up the game a little bit, and a lot of rule changes have been floating around. What are your thoughts on the whole situation in general?
I like some of the changes that they're talking about making. I know they've talked about limiting the pitch, the mound visits for coaches and for players, I believe. I think they made it something like six visits per play or per pitcher or for the game.
Yeah, right.
Then I heard a rumor that maybe they're going to let teams start using whoever they want to hit in the 9th inning if they're losing.
Yeah.
Not really sure what that's all about, but
yeah,
let's not let that happen.
Yeah, hopefully
Fast
not.
5 team. Quicker.
Hopefully not. Nick, we're going to come to you. If you're Matt Klentak and you're looking for someone to replace the Phillies pitching, who do you want to head the pitching staff?
All I can say is, Arrieta, come to Philly.
I love the enthusiasm. Kevin, how well do you think the Sixers are going to have to do in the second half to make the playoffs?
I think that they're going to get in. They got, 20-some-odd games remaining, 9 of which are against teams above 500, so that's good numbers for us, and I think that we might end up having a home playoff series. Yeah,
that'll be very exciting. Tegan, which Phillies youngster are you most excited about?
I'm a big J.P. Crawford fan. I see a lot of Brandon Crawford in him. Very, very good contact bat, nothing too crazy, but an awesome defensive player.
Yeah,
I see a lot of player comp between those two Crawfords.
Yeah, you really had a lot to pick from in that bunch. But we're going to wrap things up now. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. You can check us out on social media on LaSalle TV, online, on Twitter at SportsTalk LTV. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, YouTube, Gmail. No Gmail. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend, and we can't wait for you guys to tune in next week. Thank you.